welcome. Hey, it's the Genesee County Compassion Club show. I'm your host, Jeremy, coming to you from allpointstv.com. How's everybody doing today? It's a beautiful day in May. It's like almost 80 degrees. I think we're supposed to get hail tonight, so take cover.
I was out a couple weeks ago when it started hailing. You know,
yeah,
and it was like it hurt. It hurt.
Yeah,
it got right in your face. It was smaller stuff.
Be careful. So I know a lot of folks are out there. You know, I know I have been planting the garden and doing all that. So make sure you take a little extra time to cover up your plants or take precautionary measures, if you will. I got a few things I want to share with you this week, let you know what's going on. We're going to be talking about cannabis. We're going to be talking about what's happening here with the medical marijuana scene in Michigan. Of course, we got John back here behind the camera making it happen here at allpointstv.com. If you guys want to call in and ask a question, you're more than welcome to. It's 810-250-7365. I'm your host, Jeremy, and let's get it going on, all right? We got the Genesee County Compassion Club Soup Kitchen. We are switching days in the month of May, and it's going to be on a Tuesday in the morning. If you guys want to help us out, please sign up. Please show up. Please be there. Same place, just different time. If you've been watching the podcast, you're already aware of it, but we're doing this so that hopefully more of you can participate, help us out. Definitely love to see you all there. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask Mr. Matt. He's sitting right there in the club. All right. Other items that we've got going on. Actually, the best way for you to know what's going on right now is to pick up your most recent issue of the Michigan Medical Marijuana magazine. You can check it out. It's in the club. It's at a lot of your other cannabis-friendly locations. But flip open to like the third or fourth page. You'll see Genesee County Compassion Club's ad there with a beautiful calendar, letting you know all of the wonderful and fun events that are going down at the club coming up here throughout the summertime. And make sure you check those out. I know one of the things I was looking at that kind of had me interested was euchre tournaments. But there's lots of stuff to do at the club. Come on down, check it out. Pool table, ping pong table. We got 2 new pinball machines. Delicious food and lots of friends, of course. So check us out. All right, we got other things I want to talk about today other than events, of course. You know, well, let's get to it. Right behind me, you can see this beautiful hummingbird doing what nature's intention is, which is extraction. Yes, that's right. Hummingbirds do their own extraction. But happened to actually get a hummingbird in my own yard this week. I was so excited, so I had to share it with you guys. But it does happen to be relevant to the topic that I wanted to talk about today, and that is extraction. Let me pull up the interesting information that spawned this conversation in my head anyways. But there were 3 new medical marijuana bills that were introduced on April 19th, just a day before 420. And these bills all have to do with extraction. Now, let me give you a little background if you're not familiar. Michigan passed a law on cannabis extraction, making home residential butane extraction illegal. So, not that you can't do butane extraction, but you cannot do it inside of a residence. That has already been made a law, and it was done for public safety reasons. Obviously, we had numerous places around Michigan that burst into flames or a giant fireball or pure explosion. Unfortunately, due to unvetted vapors, butane is incredibly flammable, of course, and when it's not ventilated properly, it can create a bomb. Basically, it's a bad thing. So we had people blowing up their basements and their garages and so on when they weren't doing things properly. So for those of you that do butane extraction, I'm sure most of you now have figured out the safe ways to do this. But, you know, obviously it was a concern and they passed a law. It's already been done. So anyways, this is a new law that's being proposed. 3 separate bills. Tristan Cole is the representative that proposed these bills, and well, I can't really give you good logic for why he would propose these bills, but here they are nonetheless. It basically is to ban extracting marijuana. Pretty much is what it's for. All in all around, top to bottom, a ban on cannabis extraction, period. And the language that is used to create this basically states that any chemical extraction of cannabis is illegal. And of course, as you well know, ice and water, air, those are all made up of chemicals. So the word chemical is a broad description, and it is not narrowed down by definition in the law that is proposed. And being that it has a broad description, it would imply things like ice water extraction, CO2 extraction, of course, butane extraction, and this would have nothing to do with where it is extracted at. It would just simply make it a felony, actually. It'd make it a 5-year felony for anyone doing this. So, and it actually that's a longer sentence than the manufacture of marijuana, which is only a 4-year sentence. So, basically, this bill, or these set of bills that were proposed, in short, what it does, basically, like I said, is it eliminates the ability to create extract products. And in fact, I'll get into parts of the bill here for you. It says, the first part here is, person shall not knowingly extract resin from marijuana by chemical extraction unless the person holds a processor license. So that is not a caregiver, that is not a patient. That's a processor license, the one that the MMFLA would be issuing. So right there, that first bill that issued, it says if you don't have a processing license, you can't do any extraction at all. The second bill basically says an individual shall not knowingly extract resin from marijuana by chemical extraction unless she is employed by or holds a processor license. And then it goes on to state, the penalties, such as it is guilty by a felony, punishable up to 5 years and not more than $5,000 fine. It says here, if person causes serious injury to another person, in violation of this amendment, an additional fine is imposed, additional imprisonment, so on and so forth. And then it even goes into, whether or not you had loss of limb or death or so on and so forth. But at any rate, nuts and bolts of this really is just eliminating patients' and caregivers' ability to do their own extraction, regardless of what type it is. You can see the first part of the bill says any resin. Second part of the bill says any chemical being used to extract the resin. So all in all, right out, cutting it out. This is a terrible set of bills, obviously. Extraction can be done through numerous different methods, through many different sorts of chemicals, many of those being incredibly benign and 100% safe, such as ice water extraction, like I mentioned. CO2 extraction is also relatively safe. The majority of folks that have apparatuses ability to do this type of extraction have full 100% return rates. And there are other methods as well. Alcohol extraction can also be relatively safe. Obviously, alcohol is flammable, but most people are aware of that and take precautionary measures. However, there has been no real thought put into this, obviously, by Representative Tristan Cole. There's no concern here for patients' ability to process and procure their own medication. It is eliminating the caregiver's ability to do so if this were to pass. And it is allowing the only people to have, of course, creating a monopoly for folks who have processing licenses. So obviously this is not a bill that we want to see gain any type of traction. Like I said, butane extraction in residential areas has already been eliminated. It is illegal to do that. So there's really no good reason for proposing these types of bills other than to create a monopoly, which is what Tristan Cole essentially is trying to create by proposing these bills. So I wanted to bring those to your attention. Obviously, you can contact your state representative or state senator, let them know that you do not approve of these extraction bills, that they would be detrimental to your own ability to provide medication for yourself or for your patient. And that's basically it in a nutshell. So disgusting, more disgusting stuff from our legislature, more proof that they do not have a clue as to what they're trying to legislate or to govern over. And I think actually it's more proof that government has interest in creating a monopoly. But we'll have yet to see. So at any rate, I put my picture of my hummingbird up here for you to show you that extraction can be safe, and it is all natural. So continue extracting for now, and voice your concerns to those who matter, and hopefully you'll be able to continue to do so.
I never heard of a hummingbird just blowing up, or just catching, lighting on fire there, so
spontaneous combustion or something like that.
That's the phrase I was looking for.
Yeah.
It just escaped me there. Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, let's move on to our next unbelievable thing that the state is doing. First thing we'll talk about is June 15th. This, of course, is the deadline placed by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Licensing Board that all applicants would have to either be approved or cease to operate by June 15th according to their own rules. So this is, of course, in reference to centers, growers, processors, deliveries, whatever. If you have submitted an application for the MMFLA licensing process, it needs to be approved in full by June 15th for you to continue to operate after said date. Of course, this is an oxymoron proposed by the state and conducted by the state's board. There's no way that any business will be able to be fully licensed by June 15th. Even if they were able to be fully licensed by June 15th, there's no way they would be able to be operational. There have been concerns voiced about this. They were voiced at the last licensing board meeting by public comments. There has been nothing done yet to address this issue. And the board has not addressed it, neither has LARA themselves. There has been concerns voiced by some of the board members and folks from LARA that not following through with the June 15th deadline would create a competitive market between places that would continue to operate under the old fashion prior to getting an approval and places that would apply and get their approval and operate under the new fashion. So in spite of this proposed or sort of dreamed up competition that they're talking about, I really don't think there's any real reason for not extending the June 15th date. The number one concern here obviously is patient access and making sure that patients have continued uninterrupted access to their medication. If the state comes through or continues to enforce their June 15th deadline, this will of course create a major disparity in the production and in the procurement of medication for patients. So we'll have yet to see what the state is going to do. There is no criminal penalty that has been proposed or is to be imposed on places that operate after the June 15th deadline. However, there have been comments from some of the board members, including Don Bailey and also the board chairman, who have said that they would not approve or would not look in favor on any applicant that is still open past June 15th that is also in the application process. So with that negative outlook from two of the board members, of course they could still get a majority without those two, but even having that is obviously not a good thing, and it does not make sense. So we'll have yet to see what the state does with this June 15th deadline. It needs to be adjusted. It needs to be changed. And the comment from the LARA director, Andrew Bisbo, who stated that he was confident patients would be able to have access by June 15th, is laughable. Andrew clearly has never germinated a seed or grown anything from clone to bud. He has obviously no experience in the cannabis cultivation and does not understand the impossibility that he is proposing with these timelines and deadlines and so on and so forth. So hopefully the state will come to terms with their own predicament here and propose a solution that is workable for everyone. In the meantime, the original law of 2008 is still 100% fully operational. Patients still have the ability to acquire cannabis from any source legally, and caregivers are still out there. Caregivers can still service 5 patients, and patients can still find caregivers. So, in the meantime, utilize the original law is what I would state. I would say don't ever go to the new law. Always utilize the old one. All right, next thing, we're going to move on here. And I'm going to skip over an issue here and go right on to the next one. This is actually in dealing with the licensing process. And I want to share this with you because it just goes to show that there's a lot more issues here going on than what the state would like you to believe. And this is in dealing with some technicalities in regards to property acquisition. So obviously there's these licensed or potential licensees out there. They've applied, they've spent lots of money to get their application in place, and now they may be in the process of purchasing property for their new medical marijuana facility. And this is just in from Fidelity National Title Insurance Company, Chicago Title Insurance Company, and Alamo Title Insurance Company. This is from an underwriting bulletin and a memorandum that was issued stating that if a title company receives any notice from any broker, seller, buyer, or anyone else that the land is or will be used in some capacity for growing, producing, distributing, or dispensing any type of marijuana or marijuana products, the title company is not allowed to be involved in the handling of any escrow or any other funds of any type, issue any type of zoning coverage, or issue title insurance without the inclusion of an exception related to the violation of federal law. And it's saying here basically, obviously this is a big deal. You can't have secure title if you're not able to get title insurance. This would be a big problem for anybody that wants to actually purchase property and use it for said licensee. So one more issue on top of the banking issue, on top of the ordinance issues. So obviously there's a lot of things going on here that the state just sort of jumped over and assumed everything will be okay once we say it's okay, not realizing that that's not the case. The federal government still has cannabis listed as a Schedule I drug. It's still illegal, and therefore it prevents companies that operate nationally, like a title company, or banks that operate under federal law. It prevents them from doing business with cannabis-related companies or with anything related to cannabis. So one more thing that the state just sort of jumped over and assumed it would be okay, and clearly it's not okay. All right, moving on here. I got another thing from the state. This is actually a little bit off topic. We talked about it a little bit, I believe, on one of our previous podcasts, but I know it hits close to home for a lot of our members. We're talking about civil asset forfeiture. There's a House bill that was introduced, House Bill 4158, introduced by Representative Frank Lucido. And basically what it does, in short, is it makes it so that police have to have a conviction in order to confiscate property. Seems pretty elemental, seems pretty simple, and it is. Unfortunately, right now, Michigan still is at the bottom in the nation when it comes to civil asset forfeiture laws. In other words, we have police policing for profit. And I know that they hate that term, but in reality, it's a fact. And we have people from around the state that have been the victims of raids for various reasons, had their property confiscated and not returned, and never charged with a crime. And that's un-American, and it doesn't seem right. And this bill would change that in the state here in Michigan. House Bill 4158. Good news is, and I want to report to you, is that the House, our House, state legislature in Michigan, passed this bill, I believe, today. And it will now go to the Senate for a vote. There is a alternate package of bills for civil asset forfeiture reform. These alternate package of bills are 100% garbage. The bill that passed today, 4158, is not garbage. It is a good bill. And it is the change that we need. It provides law enforcement the ability to do their job while still protecting consumers and citizens from unduly arrest and loss of property. So, in other words, police would have to have a conviction in order to confiscate property. And I believe that that's a good thing. I hope that you support that. House Bill 4158 does need to go through the Senate for approval and onto the governor's desk yet, so it's not done with the process, but hopefully with your support, it will get through. All right? So please check that out. Please support that if you can. All right, and one more thing I want to report on that is a positive thing. Part of our law in 2008 was that we would have the ability to petition LARA to add conditions, qualifying conditions for medical marijuana. This process actually was done a couple years ago, and unfortunately it ended with negative results due to our current Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley. If you recall, there were 3 different conditions that were requested to be added back, I believe, about 2 to 3 years ago. One of those was PTSD, which in fact did pass as a qualifying condition. Another one was autism, which was not approved and did not pass. It was approved by the board and it was recommended by the medical board of LARA, but our lieutenant governor somehow felt that in his infinite wisdom and experience as a doctor, which he's never been a doctor, he decided to go against the recommendation and turn autism down. Well, thankfully, that has been reversed. The panel met again last week, and they approved 10 new conditions as qualifying conditions for medical marijuana, with autism being one of those. So very good, positive news there. Let me pull up the article here and see if I can get you information on the other conditions. And I apologize, I don't have them right here in front of me. Let's see here. Here we go. All right, and if you want to read this for yourself, I would encourage you to go to michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. Our good friend, attorney Michael Comorn, wrote this article and was also quintessential in getting these conditions to the panel for review. So a big thank you goes to Michael Comorn for his hard work in getting this done, and I know that he had other people involved with him that also did a lot of work, and I just want to say thank you to those people. Here are the conditions, if I can find them here. Like I said, autism being one of them, autistic spectrum disorder, so it's actually the full ASD spectrum. That was approved. Let me see here. Well, I apologize. I'm having trouble finding the list. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so autism, obviously, that's first. Next one is obsessive compulsive disorder. These are now, again, just if you just caught on here, these are now approved conditions for medical marijuana here in Michigan, in addition to the other previous conditions. So we now have obsessive compulsive disorder, spinal cord injury, rheumatoid arthritis in general, inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Parkinson's, Tourette's syndrome, and chronic pain. And I guess chronic pain was listed as a secondary language, and I know there's a lot of people that qualified under chronic pain previously. Now it is actually listed as a separate condition, just like cancer or nail patella was previously. So now we've got 10 new conditions that have added on here. Of course, we still have the other language that I just alluded to, which was the severe or chronic pain, which could be the result of many different types of ailments. If you have those, it is a qualifying factor. But if you have one of these items specifically, you would qualify now for medical marijuana here in Michigan. So that's good news. I know there's a lot of folks out there that found relief, that were suffering from these types of ailments that previously did not qualify or had to qualify some other way. Now you can qualify legitimately for exactly what it is that you have. I know inflammatory bowel disease was a big one for a lot of folks out there because cannabis is incredibly effective in helping that, especially for people like that suffer from things like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease or diverticulitis. A lot of these types of things are affected and improved by cannabis use. But anyways, I think that's great. Now, the panel did reject other conditions that were asked to be approved. They did not say that these are permanent rejections, but they need more research on them. Some of those included anxiety, depression, panic attacks, schizophrenia, social anxiety disorder, brain injury, asthma, diabetes, and gastric ulcers. In fact, here it says actually board member Dr. David Crocker was in favor of allowing anxiety as a qualifying condition for medical use. So these conditions that were rejected, they could be brought back up again. They just need to have additional research attached to them. Sometimes it is we're waiting for legitimate research to show up. Other times we just need to find it. But at any rate, seeing them approve 10 new conditions is definitely a positive thing. We need the conditions to actually be put into law, which would require, now they're saying, and they kind of switched tunes here, and I thought this was interesting. Previously, like I stated, Brian Calley, our lieutenant governor, rejected previous recommendations by this board. Now this board continues to do their job. They've made 10 recommendations for 10 new conditions. We have yet to see if the state's going to approve those. The comment from the paper was stating that Lara was going to be the one to approve these, not the lieutenant governor as previously was done. So I'm not sure if this is a political thing. And I know obviously Brian Calley is running for governor. He probably doesn't want to put himself out there in the frying pan as to saying yay or nay, especially after he said no previously to the condition that was now been approved twice. Of course, I'm speaking about autism. But at any rate, yeah, It says now Lara has the final authority, so hopefully this will go through smoother than it did last time, having somebody else step into the picture for no reason. But at any rate, there we go. There's our 10 new conditions. So I think that's a big win for Michiganders, and a big win for Mr. Comorn. So great job. Thank you very much. All right, that's basically the news I got for you this week. I know that I didn't talk about much else outside of Michigan, but that's pretty much what counts, right? It's where you live. So, hey, I hope you guys get outside. I hope you enjoy this beautiful weather. Be careful if it does thunderstorm tonight. Thanks for being with me on the show, being at the club. Make sure you stop down. Make sure you check out that calendar for all the events coming up here. And join us again here on the podcast, the Genesee County Compassion Club show. John, thanks for being with me in the studio today. Appreciate it. You guys have a fantastic week, and I'll see you down at the club.